Hello and welcome.
What is your life right now?
I have an eye patch as well. I have to, you know,
Yar.
are- hopefully the plan was that I would wear this and that I would be able to draw a hostage shaker and it would be good, but that did not work out in my favor.
Yeah, I was kind of curious as to what you were on. I didn't know if you were on some variation of like Grixis Thieves or what was going on there, but I was really excited to see it. I know you normally bring it when it comes to being creative, obviously.
Had to do something. Well, yeah, so I nicknamed my deck the Real Thieves because
Oh,
it has a hostage shaker who's an actual thief instead of the Grixis Thief. And I call it the Fantastic Four Drops because I'm playing two Jays, Notion Thief, and Hostage Shaker in case that was not enough.
that's fantastic. I just call my deck Hollow Dredge, so.
So you are you playing the exact same list that you won the challenge with?
I am, yes.
Yes, and that's the Force of Will, and it has the Hollow ones in the sideboard, correct?
Yeah, so it's Hollow One and Gurmag Angler in the sideboard. It's a bit of a transformational plan, and it's been working really well for me. I won the Vintage Challenge the other day, which felt amazing. And having forces and missteps in the main also really helps. There's a lot of theories behind the deck that I think kind of play itself out very well. And so I've been very happy with it. And if it continues going well, I'm taking it to Eternal Weekend in 2 weeks. I'm so excited.
Yes, that's coming up super fast. And so you're 100% you're locked in Dredge. Obviously, you wouldn't play anything else, right? When it comes down to a huge important tournament.
I've been really kind of flirting with Oath a little bit. I spent a couple weeks playing Saheeli Oath, and I really like it. I just don't feel very competent with it. I think there's for certain events, I think you can kind of afford to not have that experience. Like if I'm taking something in a league, I don't necessarily have to be really proficient at it. But for Eternal Weekend, you got to know what you're playing. Like you can't get cute at Eternal Weekend, and so I would love to play it there. I might play it in a side event or something, but I don't know. It's definitely I don't feel proficient enough with it to play it in the main. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, Grafdigger's Cage is like invitational card against you specifically.
Yeah, so if you're coming Eternal Weekend, you better bring your hate because Mama's coming.
Everybody, Grafdigger's Cage.
Everybody, but I'm actually really happy. I can't tell you how many times I defeated somebody over the weekend that had a cage out, and I'm just swinging with 3 Gurmag Anglers. It feels terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually like when I chose. I thought you would probably play Dredge. Now I had no idea if you would be in my pod or not. Of course, we have no idea. But I did not. I'm notoriously very bad at skimping on my Dredge hate, and I did not this time. But it didn't even matter. I might as well have done it.
Yeah, I felt like I had to absolve myself after my last week with all those turn 1 blood moons I did. Poor Dave Williams. I'm so sorry, but I felt like I had to kind of scrub the sin off of me, all those dirty red cards, and it was just like I had to go back to what I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Though I actually loved your deck though the first round. I love that when you came out with a Blood Moon deck. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to do something a little different. It was very tricky for me trying to decide when I was going to play Dredge because we can only play each deck one time. We kind of agreed that we were going to mix it up this season. And so I definitely didn't want it to be the first deck I picked because I think that was really obvious. But I also didn't want it to be the last one because I thought that was kind of predictable too, because I think if people saw me going 2 weeks without it, they would be like, well, she's going to play it now. And I felt like the middle was really the sweet spot of I've got it out of my system. Okay, fine. For the 3rd week, I'll do something incredibly janky and we'll have a good time.
Yes, I actually started thinking about that, and I was like, she won't play it the last week because then everyone knows that she'll play it.
Yeah, I try not to put myself in a box, and I try not to do what people expect me to do. So it was fun for me trying to calculate when was the right time to do it.
Yeah, you have to play it though at the same time. Like that's your baby, that's your deck. You're gonna play it by the end of somewhere along the 3. You have to.
That reminds me of the time when we were at the Community Super League, and there was a week of Modern no ban lists, and I remember everybody had pegged me and the girls for doing Dredge, and we decided not to. This is a little behind the scenes story, not everybody knows. And Randy actually pinged me at midnight the night before and was like, "What do you think you're doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm trying to challenge myself," and he's like, "No, you're here to play Dredge," and I was like, oh, like, okay. So even when I tried to challenge myself, I remember that story of him just going, this is cute and all, but this is what you're here for. And so every once in a while, when I stray too far from my comfort zone, I just hear Randy's voice in my head going, what are you doing? You're here to play Dredge. And I'm like, sorry.
I remember now. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
do you
because we
think
didn't want to. What was that?
what do you think the other people might be on? What did you kind of think that everyone would be on this week?
I have
Other than
honestly
me,
been
of course.
surprised every time I've logged in and seen what was going on. You know, I jumped in for some surprise coverage last week and I didn't expect as much shops as I was seeing. I don't know. It really could be anything. You know, I wouldn't rule Oath out at this point. I think that's sort of an underrated deck right now. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody went like whole, really out there and maybe brought like some Belcher, some Doomsday even. That would be sweet. I know the Grixis Thieves thing is still happening. I don't know. I got beat by a Tendrils of Agony the other day, so that's still out there. I'm keeping a pretty open mind. Again, I'm trying not to box anybody in and seeing what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. With Rietzl, I think honestly, I have no clue. Anything could go. And I think, I know we have some really exciting decks coming up, and I think he's going to bring something really unique to the table.
You know, and I think when we talk about defying expectations, I think he's really the one who will bring it. Because I think I mentioned when I was doing coverage with Randy the first week that Paul, in my experience, tends to play very safe decks, kind of comfortable decks, and particularly in other formats. And so I think the Delver choice was very safe for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did a complete 180 and really maybe broke out with some goblins or something we weren't expecting. I think he's got it in him. It just has to again be the right time of when do I want to bust that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're ready.
It seems like we get to go.
Oh my goodness. Rachel, do you see what I see?
Okay, mine loaded a little bit late, and the first thing I noticed before I even look at the cards, let me minimize the thing, is the names. I'm loving the names.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so and red, white, and bruise.
Oh, I love this.
That reminds me of the standard format when it was Jeskai Black. And
when
Mardu
you come
Blue.
You have to come up with a good name. That's like the number one most important thing. Everybody knows that. If you come up with a bad name, your deck won't perform for you.
All right, so let's see what they've got here.
So Eric Froehlich, although he does have red, white, and bruise, I'm interested to see what the brew part is. Because right now it seems pretty, from what we see, Time Walk, Dak Faded, Young Pyro, Gush, we're pretty like stock on that one. So I'm
trying to determine what that. I see a Seeker of the Way. Come on, Con Standard. And there's a green. Is it an Undergrowth Champion? I see. It's a good sign, and we have to read the cards.
Yeah.
Deep Root Champion. Oh my word. Ixalan.
Hey, Ixalan coming in hot up in this.
Yeah,
like,
Paul.
This
so if I had to judge, I see a bit of a pattern here. So the Merfolk has like something adjacent to prowess, and then Seeker of the Way has official prowess. Like that could be the theme here of just kind of all sorts of
playing a mentor as well.
Yeah, yeah. Seems like Paul's not letting us down though in terms of the spice.
No, he's not. Hopefully whatever his brew is something from Ixalan as well, because then that means that Ixalan is really representing in vintage this week on the VSL.
I actually had somebody use Sorcerer Spyglass against me the other day, and that was not fun. That was a snap concede. Like, all right, I'm glad I came too. Like, it's pretty deadly.
That's absolutely a horrible card. Like at first it's a joke, but oh my god, when it happens to you, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's funny. I was keeping up with the discussion on the Mana Drain, and for the most part, it seems like people were kind of off of it. And like, I was so relieved to see that. And at the same time, I'm upvoting all the people who are like, "Don't play this card." I'm like, "Yeah, don't play this. This is terrible." Because when I had it against me, it was awful.
Yeah, they have some powerful cards too. I'm seeing like a lot of blue cards flying back and forth.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to see, because after I had to play against Dredge round 1, I was like, nah, my Pyroblast, what a waste.
So I see Young Pyromancer, Dak, Strip Mine, Dig Through Time. So what do you think Eric's plan is?
So, interesting. What? So he's not playing anything.
No.
He has no red, which is very unfortunate. I just realized looking at his board because
Yeah.
I can't really play anything.
No, he can't cast 2 of his cards. I'm interested to see how deep this goes. Paul's going to cast the Caxian Probe.
So he's going to know. The jig's up.
Yeah.
I wonder how this game would have gone if Eric was able to get that red source. Because he would have had Dak, Young Pyro, a bunch of other things to help kind of combat this.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how they're both on the cheap creatures and lots of cheap spells plans. So you see with Young Peasy, Eric's able to kind of go wide with that plan of slam Young Peasy, cast a bunch of spells and make a bunch of tokens, whereas Paul is doing something similar but with creatures, where he's not really going wide, but the few creatures he does have are able to get really, really big. And so I'm anxious to see them both kind of operating at full capacity here, like what that would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, looking at Paul's hand, I don't foresee really a way at this point that Eric's going to be able to do that. Yeah. If he would have had the red earlier, the game could have been a lot more in his favor.
Oh, and Eric just scooped.
I know that feel. So I don't want to actually die. I'll just scoop before I actually die.
I'm always torn when I'm participating in a league like this, because on the one hand, you kind of want to play it out. You kind of want to give the folks at home a show. But then there's also the part where you're like, I'm miserable.
Yeah, I can't stop. Do this to myself.
I remember when the girls and I back to the Community Super League, when we were doing I think it was the Innistrad block there. No, we were doing a tribal themed one, and we lost to the World Gorger Dragon combo, courtesy of Wedge. And I remember we were all just horrified, and we wanted to go home. And Athena's like, stand for a little bit. And we're like, oh my God, we just don't want to be here right now.
Yeah, just let us go.
But people wanted to see it out, and we needed to show them sort of what the loop was before we could go.
Yeah, so let's see. I wonder if we have the deck list now, because let's see what they have to bring in against each other. So if I'm not mistaken, the cards are really small, but I see some Pyroblast in Eric's deck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be great for him here.
Trigon Predator on Paul's side as well. Byforce in Eric's sideboard. I've been using Byforce in Legacy in Ant, and I've been very happy with it.
These two guys, they are fast. Did you see that? They sideboarded. They knew exactly. They were like, blue matchups, we got this. We know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that just kind of comes with the format though too. There's so, like you said, blue deck, you kind of go on autopilot. Like even I know kind of what my plan is after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric Froehlich's hand looks, just looking at it, it looks amazing. So he has the Lotus to be able to cast Jace, turn 1 if he wants. And looking at it on Paul Rietzl's side, I don't foresee a way that he can stop that if he goes for it. Do you think Eric will go for it?
I think I actually kind of maybe going with Young Peasy first, because again, with Paul being more of a creature, well, I could go either way. I was going to stay with him being a creature deck. Jace wouldn't be good, but we kind of talked about the wide versus the narrow argument in terms of their creatures. And if Paul's playing few creatures, then Jace really shines. If he was going wide like Eric is, I think Jace would be bad, but Jace actually might be good here, and Paul can't do anything about it, as we can see.
Yeah, and a turn 1 Jace, against a blue deck, against any not completely unfair deck, it's going to be impossible for Paul Rietzl to come back, I feel.
Yeah.
The card advantage is just so strong on turn 1. It's insane. Yeah. This is beautiful. This is a thing of beauty that you can play turn 1 Jace. This is why people play the format. Everybody, right?
Yeah.
Or you get to dredge it, I guess.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And Paul then no creatures.
Paul's hand isn't bad. It's just when you go,
it's not a turn 1 Jace.
Yeah. So at this point, I don't even know what he could really be looking for. He's gonna have to string together a few things to.
We see them exchanging counter spells and draw spells.
Mm-hmm. Which is of course more favorable for Eric because Eric is able to refuel with his Jace. And stopping Paul from having the ability to craft his hand into something that maybe a few turns down the road could deal with the Jace is great for Eric.
Oof, Gush is the draw from the Jace there.
And is that red card, Young Pyromancer?
I think so, yeah.
It's hanging off, but I don't think whatever it is, we won't know for a while. But he also still has no red mana, so I don't know what's going on with Eric and this red mana.
Yeah, we're not seeing the red. We're seeing the white, and we're seeing some bruising, but
On game 1, Eric was the one who got bruised.
I was trying not to say that.
I can say it. I have the sword, so I'm allowed to say that.
Good. When he comes after us, I'll just run behind you.
Exactly. You would think with an active Jace, he would find the red source by now.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Although I have had situations. I remember there was one time I was playing in a side event in a GP, and I had 2 bazaars, and I couldn't find a dredger. Like, you would think, I'm digging, yeah. I'm digging. Nope.
Yeah. Or like I think with the like if you have serum powders, if you are running the dredge deck with serum powders, I think what the percentage is to eventually hit a bazaar is so high. But there's still, I have still seen at least once in my life someone not hit it.
Oh, yeah.
Zero, hit it.
Yeah. I play Modern ad nauseum. I've cast Spoils of the Vault and exiled my win conditions before. Like, sometimes you just end up on the wrong side of variance, and you can't help but laugh about it. You're just like, well, that's what I signed up for.
Those ones are actually like the least painful.
Yeah. Oh, we got a red source.
Yay, red source.
That no, I think that's Paul's.
Oh, yes, it
Paul's.
Is.
Oh,
Eric. Now Eric needs to draw red source, draw a DAC, play the DAC so he can steal the red source, have 2, and he can have that.
All right, so there's Peasy. Eric seems like he's in such a good position right now. Like, even though he's not, really committing much to the board. I mean, like you said, the turn 1 Jace is more than enough. Paul really isn't doing too much. I don't know that Paul can really out-control Eric. Like, Paul's got some elements, but it doesn't compare to what Eric's working with.
No, yeah, it's pretty... at this point, it's Eric's will eventually find the red mana. Luckily, because he had that early Jace, he'll eventually find the red mana. Winning for him is going to be rudimentary once he finds that. It's right now it's just not dying, and he can easily do that.
Do you think he's running a mentor?
Eric?
Yeah.
I would be running a mentor if I was running it. I'm going to say yes. He has to be, right? He's playing like Gush.
Yeah.
I think he would be. Now the question is Paul Rietzl running a mentor?
Do you agree with fighting over this time walk? This is a very interesting play.
So who is putting... Okay, so I think that's okay, but it kind of seems like a losing battle in my opinion. I don't know if I would have done it. Would you?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have. Especially seeing how many cards Eric has, I probably wouldn't have. But maybe that's not. I don't know if that's the correct answer, but yeah, I wouldn't have tried it. The odds were
trying to clear the way for some of his counter spells, but the problem is he has so many. It's kind of, it's almost at some point he's going to start having to like discard.
He has so many that he can counter a crummy green Merfolk from Ixalan and not bat an eyelash.
Not fair.
I think I was talking about that with Bob the other day. Sometimes you reach a point like when somebody's able to hard cast Force of Will, it's a very pivotal moment in a game where you have to play very differently when your opponent reaches that point.
Yeah. Because now the card disadvantage of that is gone, which is the only thing that keeps Force of Will in check, if you can agree that it is in check.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, still, is he playing red mana? Did you forget to put the red mana sources in your deck, Eric?
Yeah, what?
What if that's the brew? The brew is that he can't actually cast.
Oh man.
Maybe he can only. I don't even know. It just seems very abnormal that he wouldn't be able to have a red source by now. But of course, I'm sure he has.
I mean, that was what there have been 4 activations of Jace. Oh, and Paul's gonna scoop.
Yeah, now he has a 2/1, so now the thing that's actually going to kill him is on the table, so I think that's fine. Kind of the same thing with Eric, is he probably just didn't want to actually sit there and get attacked to death with a 2/1 Snapcaster Mage.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at their sideboards here. 3 copies of Fragmentize and Paul's, 2 copies of Containment Priest.
Okay, so I just thought about it. If you're Paul Rietzl, do you know that Eric Froehlich has red in his deck at all?
Well, we're looking at it, and I do see some volcanic islands there.
I think he saw a young pyro with a Gataxian probe.
Can we talk about the Talrins in Paul's main deck? You see those? That's a Talrind. A Talrind.
Okay. Okay, so I also do you see a mentor? Is that yeah, that's a mentor right there, right?
Yeah.
And Paul.
I also see an overgrowth champion, it looks like.
Wow.
Yeah. Paul really brought it this week.
Yes.
Tallrend. Oh,
Oh,
man.
yeah. Yeah. Our goal. That's our bingo slot for this match.
Yeah,
We
Eric's
need
list
to
looks pretty
bingo
safe
cast
compared to
already.
that. Yeah, I can't think of anything I'd really do differently if I were them. Oh, God, I want to see the Tallrend in action now. Is he running Lotus? Like, give me a turn one Tallrend. Like, that would be sweet.
I want to really bad. Yeah, that would be good. That would probably, would that be better than turn one Jace?
I don't know if it'd be better, but it would certainly be in the spirit of the challenge of like, we wanted silly, we wanted spicy, and nothing spicier than popping your Lotus and casting Tallrand Sky Summoner. Especially being Eric and not knowing that that's a thing, like seeing the Lotus, seeing the land, seeing the Lotus crack and go, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then like it drops and you're like, you know what I mean? Like kind of the whimper where you're like, okay. Like,
at least I go out in style.
Right.
I mean, at least. All right, Eric Froehlich, everybody, round of applause. Eric Froehlich has officially drawn a volcanic island. So obviously this is going to be the best game. That's got to be some box that Eric Froehlich can like check off. Like I beat a blue player in Vintage, not ever drawing a red source, and
without even playing the third color in my deck.
Exactly. What I feel like we've had to recall a lot of these games.
Yeah.
Which is great.
That white bordered merchant scroll makes my heart hurt a little bit, but how do you feel about white borders, Rachel? Are you passionate about it like I am?
I'm very passionate, as in I do not like them. I don't.
Okay. I know Saffron Olive was joking the other day on Twitter with us going back to Dominaria soon. He was like, they should make the masterpieces white border cards. And I was like, how dare you?
I cannot imagine that. That would be true terror. That would be pay $10 for a movie, go sit in the thing, the screen starts, and it's a white bordered card. That's it. The end finale. That would be the worst scary movie.
You get me, Rachel. You get me.
I absolutely do. That's like, I think there was a player that played on purpose, or like a mono red player that played a completely different mountain.
Oh, I'm literally shuddering here. Just no.
And now when we come back, we get to see some pretty exciting Black Lotus being cast again.
Absolutely.
They have had Black Lotus a surprising amount of times.
Well, there's Mentor.
Yes. Can't lose. He literally cannot lose now.
Yeah, the last time I cast Monastery Mentor was when it was standard legal. I was playing it in Esper Dragons as a sideboard game, specifically for game 3, because their games used to run very long. And so sometimes you wouldn't want to dally around with dragons and drawing the game out. You want to just slam your turn 3 and be like, sup. And it does that very well. Eric cast a red spell. We can all go home.
Yes. Young Pyro, the poor man's Monastery Mentor.
Young peasy. I know some people like to call Monastery Mentor old pyromancer, or old, young and old and bald, and yeah.
I see.
Old pyromancer.
Yeah, the thing with Mentor is Mentor literally makes itself. It makes a little mini itself.
Balance in Eric's hand.
Also a great card.
Mm-hmm.
Love that card. That card, though, I always go back and forth in Vintage with that card, because sometimes it can be very bad. It's one of those cards where I wonder if it's worth it, because it doesn't help you necessarily win. In some ways, it can be balanced, which is...
I see what you did there. No, it's definitely very tricky in that you have to make sure the board is where you want it. Even though it's interesting, it's called balance, but you still want it. There are still ways to cast it and have you still be favored in it. Like you don't want to cast it and be the disadvantaged player. So it really does come down to getting your board where you want it to be. And that can be difficult in a format as fast as Vintage, where you may not have the luxury of sitting down and plotting that out.
Absolutely. Like sometimes I draw balance, and balance is the only thing that could get me back in the game. And sometimes I'm behind and I draw balance and it doesn't really help me at all.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I played Modern, I used to play Living End, and it's kind of the same thing. And sometimes with the mirror, you'd have to kind of look at whose graveyard is just right. And you're like if I do it now, I get no creatures, but it does wipe their board. And it's just one of those cards where the board has to be just right.
Absolutely.
Sylvan Library.
Sylvan, I'm like very torn here. I'm just super torn with what's happening because on one side of the board there's a Sylvan Library, on the other side of the board there's a Mentor. So I absolutely have no idea who to root to.
You don't know who to root for.
I don't know. Although Paul Rietzl, I think the only time that's okay to play the Seeker of the Way is if you're playing Sylvan Library, because I think that card is egregiously bad without it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with Seeker in Paul's deck because he has a library. And I like that little synergy, but then Eric's just playing just phenomenal cards. So how can you go wrong?
And how does Paul get out of this at this point? He has Sylvan Library. I mean, like he's got some draw spells, but like what can you do against a Mentor that's online? And we see Eric's hand, the hand to really kind of keep it going.
I don't know about that. I can't really foresee a great way out of this for Paul. It would start with drawing his own Mentor and then being able to deal with Eric's Mentor, which he does have a lot of looks at it with Sylvan Library. So we'll have to see what he can kind of put together. The problem is Eric is also not out of gas.
No. And the board state is definitely in a place where Eric does not want to cast balance. So I think if he casts Dak, that's the first thing I'm going to get rid of is I don't need this anymore.
Yeah. Must be nice.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably just happy to have red mana, let's be honest.
Yeah. He's one little walking there.
He's walking on sunshine right now.
Exactly. He's like, currently in this round of the VSL, every game that he draws red mana, he is a favorite to win so far. All he has to draw is Volcanic Island if you extrapolate the data.
If the coverage ends up getting slower as the night goes on, we could maybe turn it like a drinking game of, if Eric draws a red source, plays a red source, Drake take a drink, and just
exactly.
We'll either be demolished or we'll be completely aware and alert.
So I'm trying to see what Paul fully has with the...
I see a Seeker of the Way, I see a Regrowth, I see a Snapcaster Mage, a Gush, a Windswept Heath, a White-Bordered Merchant Scroll, a Preordain, and a Flusterstorm. And
Eric is doing exactly the best thing against Sylvan Library, because when Sylvan Library shines is when the player who has the Sylvan Library doesn't have duress on their life total, because they can just start taking all the cards, doesn't matter. But knowing he's facing down that Mentor and all of the tokens is definitely something that he has to keep in mind with what he's able to do with the Sylvan Library. So in his own way, Eric is kind of keeping it in check.
Mm-hmm.
Now he just has to draw the thing, start gaining life. Cast a Talrand is what we need to get him to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Seeker, there he goes. Seeker just looks so bad when Monastery Mentor is on the other side of the table.
It kind of looks like putting a box of Cheerios next to a bag of Wheatios. Like, when you go to the grocery store and they have those bagged cereals that are like meant to copy the name brand ones. Like Monastery Mentor is Honey Nut Cheerios TM, and Seeker of the Way is like Wheatios or like something kind of tragic. Like
yeah, exactly. You have like the Count Chocula, and then you have to like they come up with some like horrible name like Chocolate Puffs.
Chocolate bats, like something like adjacent to it, but not quite there for copyright reasons.
Yes, exactly. Oh, man. The gush.
Oh.
Yikes.
Eric got this, yeah.
He's dead there, like actually factually dead.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised to see him kind of wrap it up. You know, I just kind of slamming Mentor, especially having it that early in the game, is so hard to come back from.
And this is what I think what kind of played out there was what I always kind of end up coming to with blue decks is there's sometimes an optimal cards to play in them, and when you try to put non-optimal cards, you end up just losing to the very boring like blue white red or blue white decks.
But I do give Paul props for, you know, what he brought. You know, obviously, I think I'm doing coverage with him next. I'm anxious to kind of talk to him about those cards and, you know, what inspired him to play it. And I was very impressed in terms of a, you know, from a brewer standpoint or,
Absolutely.
you know, keeping it creative standpoint. So props to him for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he can still cast Talrand. That wasn't the only game that he gets to play this week, so he could definitely still cast it.
I want a Talrand tonight. I have a little achievement card next to me. I want to check that off my list. I want to see a Talrand.
We need to make a bingo card of like when you have to the VSL and whoever gets bingo first, whoever like does those things wins.
Yeah. So I can check Rietzl and a pirate hat off my list. Let's see, I can check Air Founder Red Source.
Hey, you playing a mono red deck? I can check that off the list.
Absolutely. We're just breaking all sorts of boundaries here.
Pass that with. Okay, and we'll be right back.